Everyone, my guest today is a three-time MVP and author of a new book called Extending Dynamics 365, Finance and Operations Apps with Power Platform. It's a mouthful, but Adria is passionate about D365 F&O. He's focused on the technical side of the application with 10 years of experience in worldwide implementation. He currently works at Hellman Worldwide Logistics, managing teams in the Philippines, Hong Kong, Singapore. But outside of that, Adria is a leader in our community, both as a speaker sharing his knowledge and mentoring other professionals. Both Mike Pearsall and I are keen to learn more about Adria, especially his latest book and how he started the journey from blogging to authoring that book. Let's join him. Adria, how are you doing?
Hello, good morning. Everything's good here.
Welcome. Have you met
So-
Mike before?
No, so I
Mike
met
and
No.
I,
from LinkedIn, but maybe I guess that doesn't count as meeting.
well,
So-
I was watching your book launch, Adria, and then the growing fascination with it. And then Mike pops up a blog writing a little bit about your book. And I was just so interested how the two stories intersected. So, could I
Okay.
get your thoughts, Adria? Tell us about your childhood. How did you end up in D365? Mike's career was a bit of a zigzag. He was in the Navy, and then he's now in D365 for about 15 or so years. But yourself?
So I have to say that I was in contact with computers from a young age. So I was born in 1992, and I guess that by 1990, maybe earlier. So I had an MSX at home with these tapes. You had to wait for the games to load. So
Yes.
I'd like to see kids nowadays wait for games to load on the tape. And well, for me, having a computer at home was usual from that point. And, I remember messing up one of my first PCs installing something called Linux, which I got a book with a CD, and I was following the book. I messed the partition and the master boot. My dad was not very happy about that. So I guess that
Did
in the
it.
direction
Yeah.
where, so I ended up studying computer science at the university, and I got into dynamics by chance, because I don't think anybody got into dynamics. Oh, it's my passion since I was young.
Yeah.
Nobody
Since I
wants to
deleted
be an
that master
ERP.
boot record, my,
Yeah.
my dad kicked me out of home, sent me to the monastery. I was a priest. But anyway,
Right.
you got into it. So, how did you get into it then?
So one of the last years I was studying, I took a summer course on something called Axapta, because, I had to take this course because I needed 10 credits to complete some optional or not optional. So you've got mandatory subjects, you've got optional subjects where you choose between some of them, and then you've got like 10% of the credits are you need to do other things that are not related to the main subjects of your degree. So I did basketball, I played volleyball, that counted as subjects, and I needed 10 more, and it was a summer course on Axapta, which, so I was 21, I think, and it was a bit, what's this, and let's learn about this, and I took that, I forgot about it, I finished university, and then after some months I sent some CVs, and one of the companies that replied is a Microsoft partner, and I started working with Dynamics AX and Axapta. It wasn't the first offer I got, it was the first offer that I accepted, so it's a bit, of course I knew a bit of the product because of the summer course, but I could have ended up at web development or any other thing. But
You
it
know, I'm
was
thinking,
dynamics.
Adria, that if you were writing this as a romance novel, you might not sell any books. Like, I met this girl, I wasn't really interested. She didn't seem that nice. I would have picked someone else, but now I'm with her.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest,
Yeah,
from the software developer perspective, ERP development is not something very
sexy.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, but the evolution of the product from Axapta, Dynamics AX, and now finance and operations in the cloud, it's become much more interesting because now we've got the cloud, we can do things not just inside the ERP, but Azure services, Azure functions, Power Platform. It's much better than getting inside the ERP, opening the development workspace, changing things. That was much more, not that much exciting for a software developer.
You know, maybe in the future they'll say that these ERP systems are like the neural networks of a brain, and these little mini brains inside every business is eventually join up and then form their own ecosystem, right? Ordering and receiving goods across the world without anyone else being involved.
I'd
Who
like to
knows?
say that.
Well, coming back to Mike, Mike did actually a review of your book. Mike, how did your discovery of Adria's book happen?
I was approached in a similar way to which you reached out to me, Krez, because of the blog. It's the AX7 blog, which we only launched at the start of the year. So it's 2 months old, and yet this week we hit 1,000 subscribers, and it's not slowing down. It was Adria's publisher reached out and said, "Would you be interested in reviewing the book?"
Ah,
So yeah, I was delighted to because I'd heard about it. It was on my reading list, and yeah, just brought it to the top of the reading list.
makes sense. Adria, was there a pain point that you had that actually triggered you to sit down and say, I'm going to lose my life for 2023 writing this book? I gift it to the world. How did that pain become so strong that you did this?
So it's more or less the same way Mike learned about the book. So the publisher contacted me with a proposition, not a proposal on, we've got this idea, we think this could be something interesting. And I said, I think so. Yeah, it could be something interesting. And well, Pact approached me. Then I drafted the outline of the chapters.
Yeah.
And after that, I said, okay, I think I can do it. And so I wasn't the first one to take the steps to write the book and approach Pact. It was the other way.
Yeah, but you still had to, I guess, come up with that structure, the chapters.
Yes. So at the time, I thought, okay, after I've got the outline of chapter 1, 2, 3, it will be quite easy. Because to be honest, it was the first draft of the table of contents that I did was, it had so much detail. So
Hmm.
maybe each chapter had like 10 or 12 sections that when the editor saw that, they said, no, you need to make it shorter. And so I wanted to give a really nice detailed overview of what was in each chapter. And they said, no, we don't need that. And it was like, oh, okay, that's good. But uh, so that was the first challenge, to be honest,
Did you
yes.
did you give your whole soul for that 1 year? Could you have written a thicker book, a longer book if you had more time, or did they just say enough?
I think I could have written a longer book if so. The main problem was and is and will be that the moment the book was published or after I delivered the first draft of each chapter, things were already being changed. So I remember Ignite or Build. I think it was Ignite last year in May. Microsoft announced all these copilots for everything,
Mm.
and that included Power Apps, Power Automate. Everything had a copilot now, and I delivered the first draft, and it already was outdated.
Out of date.
Yeah. So
Maybe you can make money from reprints and alterations. That's your version 2.
yeah, so a second edition, right? But
Yeah.
even then, it will be outdated. So
Yeah.
I decided not to add anything about copilots first, because especially
Yeah.
for Power Automate and Power Apps, I didn't have access to the copilots when I wrote the first draft of the chapters. Now I do, but if I had done that, if I started rewriting each chapter, I think I still wouldn't have published the book.
Hey, on that point, how do you feel about a large language model possibly grabbing a copy of your book and presenting output as its own? Or is it something that your publisher has already figured out that there will be a financial model in it somehow?
I
You,
don't know. So
if you'll be releasing your book to those large language models. I know everything that's on the net obviously is grabbed already. But
yes,
yeah.
so the book doesn't contain any advanced scenarios or secrets, So
Source,
it's
yeah.
very basic. So probably if you ask ChatGPT, you will get quite similar information, maybe not as detailed, and of course not with images, which
I see.
I think
Not as accurate. Not as accurate.
Yeah.
It'll always throw in something, right? That somebody
Yes.
that doesn't know what they mean, or, yeah, doesn't know what they're doing. Well, we'll see it and assume it's true.
Mike, how did your writing style evolve? Like you have to wake up, get a blog. I know you're an editor as well. How do you start this routine or ritual that you get up? Adria did it for a year. You?
Mhm. There's 3 primary contributors to the blog, and we all have our different styles. Mine tends to be I'll imagine an idea for a post, and so I've got about 15 drafts in flight at the moment at various stages between sort of 50 and 80%, because I'll just throw ideas at a page, and then I'll revisit it and refine it to something that's a bit more readable. In terms of how my style has evolved, I think my style is just quite natural. It's not like I'm trying to write a book. It's not like I'm trying to follow any rules per se. It's designed to be relaxed, more informal, bit of humor here and there where I can. Well, at least in my head. And yeah, so it's been very natural for me. I've not taken a course in writing or anything. I've always written. My role in the Navy meant writing quite high level reports, but they were more formal and they were more structured.
Yeah, when I think what I see on LinkedIn, there's all these stories popping up from different authors. And then every now and then I can sense something's been written by ChatGPT. It's so well formulated and structured. And the person doesn't have a preamble, a little bit at the start or the end, where you can tell it's their personality. It's just a very structured document.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed that yourself, or?
Definitely, isn't it? Yeah, it's starting to. Adria's nodding as well. It's becoming quite obvious, and it's quite disappointing, really. I'm a grammar pedant. I like to make sure that everything is written right and spelt right. But actually, the nicest thing now is to read something where there are some spelling mistakes, because then it has been written by a human being. But when there's certain emojis, there's styles that the different GPTs, and you can spot a mile off.
Spot on a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
The
What is,
emojis thing, yeah.
Adria, did you ever have a writer's blank? You wake up in the morning, grab your cup of coffee. Actually, what do you do in the morning?
So usually at 8 a.m. I have my daily meeting with my team.
That's right. You got a team in
So
Hong Kong, Singapore. Is it the Philippines?
yes, so
Yes.
I'm part of that team there, and because of the time difference, the meeting needs to be that early for me. So it's after lunch for them, but it's good. Then I know I need to be on my computer at 8 a.m. And to be honest, I'm not a morning person. So most of the times it's like still my brain is waking up, it's trying to process things,
I'm
but
imagining your
it's
face as
good.
you just listen into the meeting, just going like, hurry this up.
Yeah. So sometimes it's it's a nice way to wake up. And after that, maybe I have breakfast and start waking up.
Yes. I remember visiting Sevilla. We were talking before about it, and Spanish tapas is a favorite for me. What do you have for breakfast?
So I'm a sweet tooth person. So breakfast for me is usually something, so a toast with butter and some jam, or oats with milk or yogurt. So it's quite,
Something sweet.
yes, but maybe around 11 I can have some small sandwich, but definitely not anything very elaborate.
I understand. Adria, I know that you got your team in the morning. Mike, are you getting feedback for your blog and responding to people that early in the morning as well? You're virtually 1 hour separate from each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's where you and I were talking before, Krez, about the hours that we work, and evenings and weekends becoming inevitable in a way, trying not to make it a habit. But when it comes to passion projects like the blog, yeah, it's kind of as and when it happens, because if somebody's engaging with your content, you don't want to leave it hours before you, or certainly not days before you react and show your appreciation. So
Could you
it's
end up
as
in a
and
black
when.
hole where you're almost spending more time writing your blog than doing business? Do you see that as a
It's a risk.
possibility?
It's a
Yeah,
risk.
risk.
I mean, it's almost it'd almost be a nice problem to have. Trying to work out the possible maximum of subscribers and therefore the engagement level. There's a risk of that, but we're trying different things. Like we're bringing in some guest contributors, and the aim is to kind of spread it and make it more of a community effort than just a sole than just a couple of people being overwhelmed and forgetting to earn money to pay the bills.
Yes, yes, true, true. I mean, that, Adria, makes me think, could you have a book written by a couple of authors and therefore you won't lose another year if they want a different book?
So right now, I think it's too near to the publishing date, and some people have asked me, when are you starting with your next book? And right now,
Not
I'm
interested.
one and done. So it's not that the experience has been bad, but it really took much more effort than what I was expecting, because my approach to writing, for example, blogs is I have an idea, I write about it, publish it, and I'm done. And the book, especially with some professional editors reviewing it, was not like that. And I think it's not on my mind to write another book or even write a revision of the book. But gosh.
If we were talking to D365 consultants, would either of you recommend this as a way to generate interest or building a consultancy? Or is it something that you have to have a passion for and it just comes out naturally? It's something you can't force.
Shall I jump in on that?
Yeah.
Because that's almost an unfair question to the author. Of course, he'd recommend it. Yeah, I absolutely commend it to consultants, particularly, well, it's F&O consultants, right? And there is still a case where it's presented as the preserve Power Platform, that is presented as the preserve of CE consultants. And it needs to be, we still need to promote Power Platform more to consultants. So to your point then about building a practice, the book on its own is not how to build a practice, but it is very much a highlight of if you're establishing an F&O practice, make sure you've got Power Platform capability, because that is your first point of extensibility.
Yes. In the UK, do you see the rise of an independent contractor as a growing number, or is work being gobbled up by consultancy firms?
So I've spoken to a lot of recruiters in the last few weeks as I've sort of started to set up on my own. They've definitely talked about the fact of the growth of the contractor market. Yes.
Contractor as in subcontracting, or contractor as in independent like yourself? I've got a company, entity shift, and I want business through that.
It's the move from permanent employees to people working on a contract basis. That's
Okay.
specifically what I mean. And within that, then there is obviously the traditional individual contractor. Technically, that's me as well at the moment, but I have plans to grow a business from it. Whereas, yeah, so there's different types of contractors. It's
I see what you're saying. And then the breaking into that market, is it something you start off with one client and then you try for that second one, or they're just leaving work and saying, I've had enough of this, and just starting knocking on doors?
I think for the most part, with those two types of contractor, where you've got the person who's just doing it for a degree of tax efficiency, a degree of freedom, they are more interested in doing a single contract, single customer, perhaps a 2-year project, right? So
Yes.
so there for the duration. Personally, my interest is more in growing a portfolio, having a few clients at the same time, and spreading the value, but also keeping the interest up, solving problems in lots of places at the same time, rather than getting deep into the weeds of one implementation.
Can I ask you, why would an end user going from a consultancy firm with maybe 100 different consultants, why would they go to a smaller player? Like, what's the value add they get aside
So
from personal service?
so every implementation really should have 3 parties, in my opinion. There should be the end client themselves, should be a partner, and there should be an intermediary. And the role of the intermediary is a translator. They are there to make sure that the requirements are correctly communicated and correctly understood. So the customer knows about their business, and the partner knows about the product, and might have some industry knowledge, but they do not know that business. So the role of that third party, the role of the contractor in the middle, is to be in there a little bit earlier, get that understanding of the business, and start to help that translation with their knowledge of the platform.
Like a referee in some sense, or an
Yeah,
umpire.
absolutely, exactly that. Yeah, and being able then to call out times when either other party is being unreasonable, and to smooth the waters.
Adria, do you see that happening in Spain or in any of your work? To Asia?
No. So first, because I think that, for example, the freelancing market in Spain is not, in finance and operations or dynamics, is not something that's very common. So I know very few people in Spain working as freelancers, and they usually work with companies in the UK or Germany, Netherlands. So it's the most common scenario here is working as a consultant in a Microsoft partner. And well, what Mike was saying, I know of this role from contractors, and I think it could be really interesting because it's someone that's not from the customer, someone that's not from the partner. So he's also not just an independent contractor, but it's also an independent-minded person that should not be on the side of the customer, even if it's the customer who's paying them, or the side of the partner. And they should also be playing devil's advocate. So you're doing this, and I think it's wrong, or telling this to the customer and the partner. And a role that like this should be adding a lot of value to an implementation project. It's something really interesting, and I've never seen that, but I think it should be something, because yes, somebody that, as what Mike was saying, is somebody that told the customer you're wrong, or the partner you're wrong, and that's not happening.
Yes. And it ends up breaking, and then they repeat the whole project again, but with another partner. Can I ask you, I don't need to know the details of what's happening in Philippines, Singapore, and Hong Kong, but is it to do with coding? And are you seeing the number of projects increasing with customizations, or are you seeing it decreasing? Because I thought the whole idea of D365 was to get into config and step back from the code. But if we're going into Power Platform or Power Apps, aren't we in some sense going back into customization?
So honestly, I don't think customization will go away ever, because so the ERP is a very generic product. It has a really wide set of features, but then each industry or each customer have their own specificities.
Yeah.
So you always need to do some degree of customization, either in code or or via Power Platform. And right now the problem with the Power Platform is, or it's not a problem. The problem is that the transactional nature of the ERP makes very difficult to extend some things. Like you need to do some change in the process when posting journals. You have to do that with X++ in code inside the ERP. You cannot do that with a Power Platform. In the Power Platform, maybe you can do it before starting the process or after ending it. And that's a limitation of how we can extend the ERP with the Power Platform. To your question, so there are also a lot of ISVs working and creating industry-specific products. Like, for example, well, I always think about the car manufacturing one from Annata. So it's a very specific product, and it's quite a big company that's doing that. And other smaller ISVs are creating other smaller products, and so it's all the projects, I think, start with, we will stick to the standard, we will try to customize the list, but that's never the case because it's impossible. So every customer needs some degree of customization, either in code or the Power Platform. And this is what it is.
I mean, it creates work in one sense that after the developer leaves that company, the next developer comes in and says, I don't want to touch that code, or I'm worried to change something, right? So there's always this leftover artifacts that there's a trail, like a breadcrumbs, as developer goes from one company to the other. Have you seen any way of, in some way, simplifying this? Is there I don't know, customers that you worked with before where they say if it's with the business process, you leave it alone. If it's with the screen, you can touch it. Some sort of separation.
Honestly, no. So, and then in a perfect world, everybody would be sticking to some kind of best practice. So in the past, we had Dynamics AX development white paper. We don't have that anymore, but I've tried to stick to that as much as I've been able to since starting with F&O. And when I've had to mentor or teach someone how to do things, I always try still to stick to that. But even with these best practices, everyone has their own way of thinking, and in the end, development is putting your thoughts into code. And well, it's very hard to 10 people will write 10 different code. So it's hard. But of course, there needs to be some kind of, not standardization, but agreement between the parties, and being the solution architect in the customer or in a partner, and technical consultants to, okay, we will do this. You need to refactor this code if you don't like it, or even if you like it, you need to work on this. So
coding's the same as writing, really, isn't it? It's just the same as writing. It's a language. There's a style that can be adopted or a style that can be shared. There's editors that come in and say, "Oh, don't do it like that." So,
yes,
yeah.
Mike, how do you handle it? You're going from client to client. You see 100,000 lines of customization. Is it a case that you have to write some of it off and rebuild from scratch, or is it a case if they've committed to it, they've got another 5 years, 10 years having that hang around?
Yeah, the client's got to reflect on the level of investment that's been made in that. There's a degree of, if it's not broken, why fix it? So these sort of things have to be weighed up against the move, because typically what you might be talking about there is a legacy on-premise deployment, and the process of moving away from that level of customization. There's going to be some things that are available as new features in a more mature, it's not a more mature, but a more recently released platform. There's going to be a change in the way everything's done. So it's this trade-off between maybe this was an investment 5 or 10 years ago. Hopefully one would expect in that time frame it's been written off. If you've just done it, if you just spent that money in the last year or two, you've got to find a way, ideally, to keep it.
To plug on for a few more years and then see whether or not there's minor changes needed, or if it's achieved its benefits.
Yeah, and I'm thinking now of a specific client that has got a huge level of exactly that customization. AX 2012, quite recently deployed, and as we all know, it's out of support not that long ago. So it was only a couple of years after go live that the base platform's out of support. But I read a nice piece the other day actually about the fact that ERP systems don't rust. They might feel like they're slowing down. They might feel like they're not the cutting edge. You've not got the best automation. You've not got the most modern or optimal processes. But they're not rusting. They're still working, and that's why there's still businesses out there running DOS-based application, because it works. so there is an argument that says, why change it?
Yeah, I've seen that, and there's usually a batch file running somewhere where it's pulling data from something and pushing it. They said, don't touch that PC in the corner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Adria, for an aspiring writer, can you give us any tips, suggestions? Sounds like your publisher is a pretty awesome dude or dudette.
So
Is it something where they have to go learn some other experience first before they could consider writing something?
So I was lucky because I had already been writing on my blog for 4 years, 5. I'm not sure about that, but so I had at least some experience writing, but by myself. So nobody was checking the style, or maybe you should make this sentence shorter. So self-publishing is a thing and it can be done, but after seeing the process of how the book is edited and all the reviews for each chapter, having an editor behind you, it's really interesting. So, and then if you want to write a book, so I think you need to have some kind of experience writing before, because otherwise you probably won't think about, oh, maybe I should write a book. Maybe if you have some interesting subject you want to write about, or if you have an idea of, I want to write about this, about that, you can do it. But I think that it's it's important to know that it's not easy and it takes time.
Would you say, well, like someone starts commenting maybe on LinkedIn, then they move to writing posts on LinkedIn, then they write a blog, maybe they jump on as someone who's cooperating with others, like in an AX7 blog that Mike's doing, and then you have reached this level of, explaining yourself, your diagrams, keeping it short and tight, then maybe you're ready for that jump to a book.
Yes, I guess that it also depends on each person, but at least for me, the most difficult part was starting off each chapter. So the famous blank page, writing the first 2 pages was the hardest part. And I mean, it's my opinion and I can be wrong, of course. But if you don't have any kind of experience writing documents, blog posts, or even LinkedIn articles,
Mhm.
starting from scratch to write something, it's difficult. So it's a challenge. And well, of course, I'm sure there will be people that can do that much easier. But for example, in my case, I was very optimistic on on how difficult it would be to write a book.
You started in January and you thought you'd finish a couple of months later.
Not a couple of months, but I thought I can do this in half a year. And that was half the time that the editor had planned. And no, that was not the case.
Merry Christmas for last year.
Yes. Yes, actually.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Adria, for chatting with Mike and myself. Mike, I'm not sure if you have any other questions for Adria.
No, I don't think so. No, it's been interesting to hear his perspective of going from blogging to authoring. It's an idea I have in the back of my mind about maybe writing something one day, but no ideas spring to mind. So don't ask me that question.
I won't ask you, but Adria, what's your plans for 2024? You just came back from Microsoft, actually, the MVP seminar. Yeah. Congratulations.
So, thank you.
I think it's 3 years, right?
Yes. So the thing is, I got it in. I looked back because I've got the award behind me. I got it in.
I thought you keep it in your
2020.
bed.
No, it's on a drawer here. But the thing is, I got it in 2020, and I didn't have to renew until 2022. So I got almost 6 months free, where usually people have to renew after the first year. But if you're awarded in October or December, you get 6 months free.
Hang on,
so
the
it would
renewal is about getting it again, being awarded again.
Yes. So,
okay, so 18 months.
Yes. So on the 31st of this month, I've already done that, but I need to submit all the contributions of the last year. And then we get evaluated on the first, between April and July. And on the 1st of July, we get re-awarded or not. So we need to still reapply each year. And it's been almost 4 years, but I only have 3 awards.
Congratulations. Are you saying that you can get it for 23 months if you time it right? By the way, the lights just went off at my place, so I apologize. Someone hasn't paid the bill, but we'll continue on. I was going to ask you about, is it 23 months you can get?
No, you usually get a year, but because if you get awarded after September of each year, the first year of MVP is 1 year and a half. So you don't have to renew on March of next year because it's just 4 or 5 months, and that's not enough to consider re-awarding. So you get extra time for free. But
too good.
On the next renewal cycle, you need to apply, and then it's every year.
Okay, so you went to Microsoft. You had an awesome time there. I saw some of the posts on LinkedIn. First time at Microsoft, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And also first time in the MVP Summit in person, because last year it was also in person, but I didn't attend, so I attended online. And well, it's interesting. And it's especially nice to see the Microsoft offices.
Do they have stuff like peeled grapes or something like that? Like do they have stuff just because they're Microsoft? I mean, the millions, billions that they earn.
No, I mean, they rebuilt the campus. So for the last years, they have been building new. So on the place where the campus was, they tore down several buildings and built new ones. And the new offices are incredible. So I work from home, but I've been in an office working at an office before, and it's nowhere near to my experience. They're really nice.
I'll tell you the best experience I have, and then maybe you can share with me what happened at Microsoft. So the best experience I've had was a mining company, and they were like 12 stories. The building was owned by them, and we went in and they had their own kitchens, and there was 4 or 5 separate kitchens, and you could walk up and order any meal. And then we sat down at this table, and there was a fountain for hot coffee where you could press the buttons on your app, and it would just a spout came out of the marble, and you put your cup underneath it, and what you ordered came out. And then you had all your soft drinks, but you could press the buttons and it would come out of different spouts. That was fun. That's the best I've enjoyed. How did Microsoft compare?
So I guess it's more or less the same in all big tech companies. But so for me, the office was a small kitchen. We had a fridge with our own things, water, coffee, that was all. And I was overwhelmed by all the choice of soft drinks, coffee, flavored water. Everything was, of course, was new, and it's nice. And the restaurant, I was amazed because they had like, so it's a food hall. It's quite large. They have got tables. Everybody can sit wherever they want, and then there are like small restaurants where you order, get your food, and they have quite an interesting variety of, pizza, pasta, salads, barbecue, Asian. That was what impressed me the most. It's sad, but that was it.
And was there tables where the cool, business software people from Microsoft sat, and then there was this person from Clipchamp that were over here, and they weren't allowed to mix?
Yes, so it's an open space, the food hall, and
okay,
I guess that all employees can go there and have lunch. So it's coming from smaller companies.
Yeah,
it's shocking, to be honest. It's wow. This is like it's another level of office.
Well, don't tell any of your employees. You might find they leave and they go join Microsoft. Look at the food they get. One of the things that happened at this mining company was people were saying they were actually coming in early to have breakfast, right? And they were asking their partner to drop the kids to school. And then they were staying late because they went to the gym at 6 p.m. at night to have a meal, and then they went home. And it seemed mad because they were staying away from their family, but they said, look at what we've got. It's like
That's
a
the trick,
hotel.
isn't it? That's the trick. Same reason you have really good food on site during the day. Your employees will come, get the food from the kitchen, and make the short walk back to their desk. So they're probably only away for 5 or 10 minutes instead of taking their full lunch hour. It's I think you'll find it's a rather clever play on keeping employees in the office and available.
I think they'll deliver food soon to your desk. Just say, don't move, keep coding. We'll be right back. Okay, well, I congratulate you on achieving what most people aspire to, Adria, getting to go to Microsoft, the MVP, 3 years in a row. So well done.
Thank you.
Thank you again for chatting with us. Mike, thank you. Have a wonderful morning, and I'll go find out what's happening with my lights.
Good luck with that. Thanks, both.
Thank you. Take care, both.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Mobiz is a community-run organization. We believe in liberating people from the shackles of monotony, inspiring them to dream bigger and reach higher. We empower them to focus on the things that matter, growing their skills, solving new problems, and helping others on a global scale.
We eliminate manual work that stands between people and their future, preventing them from learning new technologies, unleashing their talents, and leaving a legacy that has a lasting impact.
Freedom doesn't wait. Join us at mobiz.com.